Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
This is Scams and Cons News with Jim Grinstead.
In this week's news, a 13-year-old girl was part of a heist that nearly robbed a 91-year-old couple out of their life savings. And scammers are posing as monks, trying to cheat a monastery out of money. But we begin with the story of a 76-year-old man who was scammed out of his life savings and now must pay taxes on his loss. The story the scammer told was a complicated one. The caller said his Wi-Fi provider was allegedly compromised by someone in Nigeria. The person hacked into the man's computer and used the information there to withdraw $5,000 and open a cryptocurrency account in another country. The caller instructed his mark on how to change his router's name and password. The scammer said it would help prove who stole his money. The man said the speed and ease with which the scammer took control of his computer led him to believe that everything was on the level. It wasn't, and the scammer eventually got $190,000. The scammer also warned his mark not to say anything about the transaction, as it could tip off the imaginary thieves. The mark made several bank withdrawals over a period of months, and each time a courier would arrive to take the money. Most of the money came from IRA accounts and certificates of deposit, money the IRS said was taxable. The agency wants about $32,000, and the man is worried that a lien will be placed on his home. Banks are supposed to help protect their customers from scams and speak up when an unusual transaction occurs. A bank got a lesson in that rule when a jury found Old Dominion Bank had not provided protection to an 81-year-old man. WUSA 9 tells how it went down.
81-year-old Richard Bennett wanted to collect interest through a personal banking account. He opened one with Old Dominion National Bank, headquartered in Tysons Corner. But 2 months later, nearly two-thirds of his $2.5 million would vanish.
It's absolutely perplexing.
Attorney Blake Weiner blames the bank for transferring $1.5 million out without his client's permission to someone who turned out to be a scammer last year. The bank authorized wire and online banking transfers within just 3 weeks, even though the account didn't have wire transfers nor online banking set up. And if it was, outgoing transfers weren't supposed to exceed $100,000 a month.
What could the bank have done differently? I think a better question is, how could the bank have done this?
Weiner says it began when a fraudster somehow got access to his client's email. While pretending to be Bennett, this person set up online banking and changed the account's phone number by simply asking a branch manager through email.
We would like you to change the contact phone number on the account. And the bank simply sent them a form, asked them to sign it, and they sent it back. And all the bank did to verify it was they looked at the signature and they said, this looks, similar to Mr. Bennett's signature, similar to a signature we've seen in another document.
The attorney says the bank failed to follow several of its own verification protocols and filed a lawsuit against the bank when he says they refused to reinstate the deposit. And just last Friday, a federal jury sided with his client.
My first thought was, well, we just need to get the bank on the phone and explain, the absurdity of this situation. I'm sure they'll understand, but they did not.
Here's proof of the jury's verdict to award Bennett his money back. Here's one example of a wire transfer of close to $500,000. It was sent to a person in Florida with a DLS wealth management email address, but that company does not exist and the address tied to it is someone's home.
What was the bank's defense? My answer would be to you, I'm not quite sure.
The way I see it, romance scammers are among the worst type of scammers. They take people's money, break their hearts, and leave them unsure of themselves. More than 64,000 people were victims of romance scams last year. That's at least the ones we know about, as victims often do not report the crime. North Carolina ranks 10th among the states targeted by scammers. Well, WCNC talked with a romance scammer from Nigeria who victimized a local woman. The scammer explained how he was able to use the same lines over and over again to trick his victims.
I made over 70,000 US dollars.
And where is that money now?
I didn't make the money at once. I made money in the period of 5 years, and I spent every penny of it, everything.
Chris says the women he targeted were mostly single parents in the U.S. looking for love.
On dating apps, I look for people that are probably depressed.
What are some of the tricks that you lure them into trusting you?
I tell them that I am in the military and I am on deployment, so I don't have access to my regular bank accounts because I am somewhere in Africa and I need money.
He says since the women then think they're in a relationship, they would send him money.
It sounds simple, and it is when you know how to take advantage of someone's vulnerabilities. This is Scams and Cons News. It was a 13-year-old girl that came to the door to collect the money. She didn't know the 91-year-old woman inside had set a trap for her. A caller told the woman that her daughter had been involved in a traffic accident and bail was needed to get her out of jail. The woman's husband, who was in the next room, called police to report the crime in progress. The woman kept the scammer on the line and offered up cash up to 5 figures and gold. When the girl arrived to collect the money, police closed in and arrested the 13-year-old. The girl was reportedly taken to a youth facility, and due to her age, German officials say the child is not criminally responsible. A monk's robe can be a sign of comfort, but it can also cloak a multitude of sins. An Arkansas monastery announced several scammers are using the identities of former and current monks for money. The abbey calls it monastic cloning. And when the fake monks come asking for money, they say there's no money to give. One scammer claimed to be Father Jerome, who graduated from St. Scholastica, a former all-girls school. The abbey said the real Father Jerome was surprised to learn that he'd been a schoolgirl. You don't expect a $3 cab ride to suddenly cost you more than $3,000. But that's what happened to a Toronto man while traveling in Mexico.
I just want my $2,300 back.
Glenn Egan of Toronto was visiting Mexico City in March of this year. He took a taxi ride that should have cost about $15. The driver demanded he pay with a credit card, then claimed the charges didn't go through and accepted cash. Within a minute, Egan got a notice he'd been scammed.
I stepped out of the taxi and immediately I got a text alert from RBC saying $2,300 and a few cents had just been charged by Visa.
Egan said he contacted Visa right away to dispute the charge, but after 4 months of trying, he's been told he will not be given a refund.
At the end, they basically said, well, I didn't get a receipt. So without a receipt, they can't dispute the charge.
The CBC said a similar thing happened to another Canadian who was vacationing near Cancun, Mexico.
He took a short ride in a shuttle at the airport. The driver locked the doors and demanded payment by credit card.
We couldn't get out of the van. There was no visible latches or locks to open. And he said, you're not leaving and you can't get your baggage back until you pay me the $3.
Attard was also told the payment didn't go through and then the driver accepted cash, but his credit card was immediately charged over $3,100. He also used an RBC Visa card and was initially told he would be refunded the money, but later told he wouldn't be.
The disputes department told me that because I willingly put in a PIN and I don't have a receipt, that they will not refund me anything.
Fortunately, the call from the CBC caused the banks to change their minds and refunded the full amount. It's generally not a good idea to try to scam the IRS. They have a rule for about anything, and a scammer isn't likely to intimidate them. But that's how scammer Carrie Morales got scammed herself. One day, the Milford woman was urged by a friend to drive to Grand Rapids. She expected to collect $60,000 in cash from a woman who'd been tricked into believing an FBI warrant was out for her arrest over a tax issue with the IRS. Morales met the official-looking woman. She had a loaded gun in her waistband, a gold police badge, a fake IRS receipt, and a phony FBI arrest warrant. That could be quite intimidating, but it wasn't for the undercover FBI agent who met Morales. The Detroit Free Press said that in U.S. District Court, Morales pleaded guilty to wire fraud, admitting she was the money mule in the scheme. The scam was designed to steal $60,000 from a Kent County woman. According to court documents, Morales' co-conspirator contacted the victim on her cell phone one day, pretending to be with the IRS Fraud Division. This is where the story gets really fun. Morales didn't know that her marked cell phone number had been reassigned to a federal agent who initiated an investigation. That led to an undercover agent making the arrest. If the scam had gone off as planned, Morales would have collected $60,000 and kept $2,500 for herself. Now it's likely she could get 3 squares a day and a fairly uncomfortable place to sleep. It's also not a good idea to impersonate a police officer, unless, of course, you're a male stripper. In this case, the imposter was a scammer. A UK national has pleaded guilty to dozens of charges after posing as a police officer. He scammed multiple victims out of more than $330,000 in cash. The man pleaded guilty to 27 of his charges, including 25 for obtaining money by deception. He was arrested after a foot chase through central Auckland, New Zealand. He reportedly cold-called victims, pretending to be a police officer and telling a story about needing their assistance with an investigation. The man was remanded into custody for sentencing at an Auckland district court. Meanwhile, police say other impersonation scams are underway in other parts of their community. This is Scams and Cons News.